Welcome to Pam Gosnell's Girlfriends. Thank you for tuning in. This is Pam Gosnell, and guess what? I have a girlfriend here tonight. We're here at greenvillemedia.com. Now, we're going through some technical rearranging and just making it better every week, but you will not be able to send me a Facebook message tonight. So just Facebook message to greenvillemedia.com, and I'm here. I'll see them, and I'll include them in the show, but I don't have my personal page up tonight. Tonight I am here with Dina Hicks, who is the Executive Director for the 3rd Judicial, that's not an easy word to say, District, for the Child's Advocacy Center. Dina works with children who, well, Dina, just tell me what you do.
Okay. At the Child Advocacy Center, we work with children and their non-offending caregivers when there are allegations of severe child abuse that have been made. And we also work with a team of professionals to investigate those severe types of child abuse, and that's called the Child Protective Investigation Team.
Okay, so these are children that have been removed from the home?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
These are children that anytime there's an allegation of child sexual abuse, severe physical abuse, or life-threatening injuries, or coming from a home where there's a methamphetamine lab.
Oh, that's a growing number of kids.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what, I know we talked about this a little bit before the show started. You do not treat, and you're not a therapist, treating therapist for the children themselves.
That is correct. We do have therapy at the center, but we contract with licensed therapists and Frontier Health. However, I am not a therapist, and I just want to be clear on that to everyone who's listening. I am a licensed social worker. I'm licensed in the advanced practice of social work. So really my field of expertise is child development and children and families and communities and working together.
So it is your charge to educate the community on how we can do more for the children that
Absolutely.
we are given charge
and
of.
just how wonderful kids are.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were the kid. You're carrying the banner for kids.
Absolutely. I am pro-kid.
Go kid.
Go kid.
Okay, see, I think I like kids and all, don't get me wrong. You know, I'm for them, okay? But I think Dante missed a level called Stuck in a Room with Children. Because that's where I'd be. Not where the beast is eating me and, you know, pooping me out. I said poop. But where I'm stuck in a room with children.
Is any particular age or all ages?
It depends. The age of the child governs the size of the room.
I see. I like that.
In my hell. If they're teenagers and there's enough room, you can stick them anywhere and give them something electronic. But they're still going to brood, and you're going to feel their angst. If they're little, you can read them a story. And that works for a while. You can try to read it. Right. And I'm pretty silly, so I can, run into stuff. They do seem to like that. But
the physical humor, okay?
Yeah. But I don't know. 8, 9-year-old girls, just give them room to do cartwheels because there will be a spontaneous back bend,
Okay. Or dress up clothes.
Or dress up clothes, yes.
Be a diva.
Or watch them, have them watch a Beyonce video or something. Okay.
Is Beyonce still relevant?
I don't know.
I'm out of it. I know cartoons, and I know really bad jokes.
I forgot about cartoons.
But another topic for another day.
You're exactly right. Exactly. Well, what I wanted to have Dina come down and talk a bit tonight is, we had a horrible tragedy in our community and thus our country this not long ago. How long has that been now?
A little over a month. Just a little over a month.
With the shooting at Sandy Hook.
Yes.
And then, of course, working with all the sexual abuse that you see on a daily basis. I don't know how you manage to rest at night, but thank God for people like you that can do that. How do we talk to kids? How do we talk to little people in a language that they can grasp and not scare them?
Right. And that's a question that we get a lot, and that's a question that I would see on Facebook. A lot of the internet was, how do I possibly talk to my kids? And topics. I will admit that I do follow topics and read the posts there.
Good.
Quite entertaining. And the reality is you just do it. It's really no magic wand. There's no special skills needed if you're raising your kids, you probably know how to talk with them.
So there's not a Dr. Spock book that says at 2 years they should be able to.
No, there really isn't.
Because it stops after
nice?
after 12 months, doesn't it?
Wouldn't it be nice to have a parenting manual with kids?
Yeah,
if
they read it too.
That's true. Yeah, if the kids read it and understood
Exactly.
that they were supposed to respond in a certain way. All kids and even infants, they can be affected by tragedies. And they can be affected by things like Sandy Hook. But it's really going to depend on your child, and you know your child best.
Right.
So
We hope so.
We hope so. So how that child reacts is going to depend on a couple of things. One is what's their age. A 6-month-old is going to react completely different
Right.
than the 3-year-old.
Because they just discovered their feet.
They've just discovered their feet. Exactly. Well, they've kind of just.
I don't know.
They're getting there.
They're not driving. I don't.
They are
that's all
not
I'm-
driving yet.
This is what. my
Right.
level.
Give them a few more months, and they'll have their own little vehicles that's battery powered, and then they can drive then. But they're going to react much different than that 16-year-old,
Right.
or that 9-year-old, or 4-year-old.
Well, we talked a little bit before the show started about media and how we are
Yes.
bombarded with information,
Absolutely.
almost to you can't turn away.
Absolutely.
Take your family to a restaurant, and there are TVs everywhere,
Right.
and other people want to watch that stuff. So
Sure.
you don't have
Sure.
parental controls
Right.
over what they're exposed to. So, what is easiest? Should we take it by age group and say when something tragic like this happens that you need to explain to your children what's happened, and not only what has happened, but if this were to happen? How,
Yeah, we can do
just
that.
being prepared. Okay.
Right, by age group. And go back to the media. At Christmas, I'm looking at all the toys because I have a new great nephew. I'm going to go ahead and bring that up.
Bring that up.
I might
Go ahead
be
and give him a
little-
shameless plug.
A shameless plug. I might be slightly proud of he's 2 months old, and he is, of course, by far the most intelligent, wonderful social
beautiful.
child. Oh,
And beautiful.
beautiful. Yes. And, especially rocking his My Aunt is awesome shirt. I don't know where he got that from. Who could
was-
possibly
it was-
have purchased that for him?
It was in a stocking.
It was just amazing how it just showed up on him one day when I happened to be
It's the
there.
elves.
It is. It's the elves. But they have iPads for children now. iPads that are marketed to the 6 months old. Children are being bombarded by images. So it's really nice and easy for everyone to say limit media exposure and do that the best you can. But when you're out at the Mexican restaurant or you're out at Fats and they've got everything playing, what do you do then? You talk to them. You bring it up because I'm guaranteeing you they have heard about it. I saw one comment on Facebook and I kind of chuckled because they said, I've kept my child from hearing anything about Sandy Hook. They don't know anything about it. And I thought, you wait till they go to school.
Right.
It's going to happen. Someone's going to ask them.
Why is there a cop here now?
Exactly. Why are all these other kids talking about this? And, kids are going to find out. It's
You really
real
don't
easy.
shelter your children from anything, do you? It's really
It's
just
really hard nowadays
unless
with the
they're
media.
homeschooled.
Exactly.
And,
I mean,
yeah.
you do want to limit. Please don't take me saying you want to let them have free reign because you do need to limit media exposure, not just of bad things happening, but in general, because kids need things at small doses.
But not that media is horrible.
No,
I
media
mean,
is not horrible at all. It
look
can
at
be
that E-Trade
wonderful.
baby. I mean, he has advanced well past his years.
Absolutely.
And I mean, we all would hope to have a kid as bright.
It must be nice.
I know. I'm telling you.
Right. My
Yeah.
Jackson will be there in
He
just
will
a
be.
few more
That is
weeks.
Jackson.
Just
Jackson
don't-
is the E-Trade baby.
That's right. He will be there very soon. But we also need to remember that the things that happen at Sandy Hook, those are really rare. We hear more about things, and we talked before we went on the air about how when we were growing up, things didn't happen. Yes, they did. They happened. We didn't get to hear about it. We don't have instant streaming media that we have right now. We don't have Facebook that keeps you up to date.
We don't have sex offenders. We didn't have sex offenders lists
Absolutely
where you can
not.
go and actually see a pin on a map
Right.
where each sex offender is listed.
Right.
We didn't have the openness of communication, not just the media, but people didn't talk about
And we still don't want to talk about it, but
So
we've got to talk about it.
That's your biggest. We talked a bit about
Yes.
that before the show. So that is the biggest obstacle that you face.
It is the biggest obstacle, particularly with child sexual abuse
Mhm.
and what we see at the Child Advocacy Center. And one of my favorite trainings to combat child sexual abuse talks about how abuse thrives in an environment of silence. And it's so true. The more we try to shelter our kids and pretend it doesn't happen, the more we're doing them a disservice. We don't need to scare them. We need to do it age appropriately. You obviously don't tell a 6-month-old to stay away from everyone, that everyone is harmful. But we need to do it age appropriately, and we need to do it in a way that
So when
kids
do you
understand.
start?
You start when we're talking about bodies
Okay.
to protect from abuse. You start from the beginning. When you talk about this is your eye, and this is your nose, and this is your ear, and this is your elbow, and this is your belly button, and this is your penis, and this is your knee, and this is your toe. This is your vagina. This is your butt, your bottom. It's a body part. I can't tell you how many times when I'd go on medicals with our kids, I'd ask 7 and 8-year-olds, do you have a special name for your private area, your penis or your vagina? And they'd look at me with these deer in the headlights. So I'd look at mom or dad, and I'd say, what's your family's special name? And they'd go, we don't refer to that area.
No.
And I'd go, what do you mean you don't refer to that area? We don't talk about that. We just say, down there.
Right. The front of your butt, the back
front,
of your butt.
exactly.
Yes.
Well, I want to step in here and say
Sure.
Tell us who you are.
hello. This is Jack Wilkerson, and I have a 7-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old son, and we started out, starting with, my daughter's private area. We called it a monkey, and then now she knows it's a private area, and her mama helps her with that stuff, and now the nickname is Hoo Ha.
A hoo-ha. Okay.
But it's I think it's more to do with my son, because my son's growing up too, and they get baths at night, and it just stuck one night. My wife, looked at my son came into the bathroom while my wife was helping my daughter, with the bath, and she said, "Don't look at Sissy's hoo-ha," and he'll say hoo-ha. And
He thinks he's a Marine.
I'm about to say, he probably does. Probably thinks this is great.
But and his wee wee, of course, and, but kids are remarkably strong.
Absolutely.
And the reason I've discussed this more than once on here is, and I hate to take away from Pam's show, but is as my daughter went through cancer this year or last year, and she's in remission and she's doing great. But
Wonderful.
But the whole time she went through it, she was so strong and powerful that it just amazed me that how strong she was.
Kids are so resilient. We do not give them enough credit for being resilient. When you're talking to kids about anything, you just want to be honest with them. And that sounds so simple for us, but as parents, we think we're protecting our kids, so we want to, maybe fluff over things, and maybe even with Sandy Hook, well, don't worry, just don't worry about that.
That was far, far away from here, and
That-
it could never happen here.
Exactly. That person is gone now. He died too, and you don't ever have to worry about it. Nothing bad will ever happen to you. And that's one of the things I caution the families we work with. Don't ever promise kids something like that. We can't control it. There may be a car accident tomorrow. And it's horrible and tragic, but that's kind of what life is about sometimes. And we've just got to be able to talk with them, but be honest and be brief.
Be honest and be brief.
Be brief with your explanations, depending on your age. If you're talking to a 3-year-old about Sandy Hook, or why are there policemen at Sissy or Bubba's school, you're going to be talking very differently than you're talking to a 15-year-old. So when you're talking to that 3-year-old,
So at 3, we just want to say it's to keep them safe.
absolutely.
And that's all they need to know.
And talk about how you're keeping them safe. That's
Okay.
really what they care about.
Right.
When that 3-year-old says,
What's
Mommy,
going on?
what's going on TV? Why are those kids in the coffin? A bad thing happened, but this is what we're doing to keep you safe.
Right. Okay, so that's at 3. How about at 6?
At 6, you get a lot more fun because kids are really starting to think about things. But they're really concrete in their thinking. And you do this anytime you ask kids to think abstractly, to try to, consider something that's a pun. Kids don't understand puns at 6, which is hysterical trying to do jokes with them. Everything's going to still be about them, and it's all going to be about what is their reaction to what happened. How would they deal with it if they were there? Well, if they were in a school and a bad person comes in, because in kids that really is, it's black and white. It's bad person, good person.
Right.
What would I do? Yes, this happened. These are the ways that your school and mom and dad were doing to keep you safe. But ask them what they know. I think that's one of the first steps we forget as big people. We forget to ask kids what they know about things. And can I tell a story on myself for that?
Please, go ahead.
When I first started at the Child Advocacy Center, in our interview room, because we do forensic interviews, specialized interviews for kids to tell their stories, we have cameras up, and that's so that the team can watch the child's interview. So the child gets interviewed one time instead of 18 different times as they did before. But I always wondered, how am I going to explain this to a child when they come in and they're going to ask me one day and I need to have something prepared? Newly out of graduate school, of course, I had all the answers, been working with
You'd read
with kids. Things. I had read everything there was about kids. And I had this 8-year-old in there, and we're coloring and we're talking and we're just hanging out and talking about some things. And she looks up and she says, you've got 2 cameras in here. I said, okay, Tina, this is it. This is your time. You've been preparing for this all your life. It's like the Olympic sports. You're there at that moment, preparing. So I launch into this age-appropriate explanation of why it was important that kids only have to tell at one time and how we're protecting them and other people might be in the other room listening, but they're not now. I would let her know. And I go through maybe a 5-minute rambling, and she's just listening to me. After I finish, I said, do you have any questions? Nope. I said, wow. I'm patting myself on the back at this point,
That good.
I know. I'm sitting here going, man, Dina, you are good.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go back and transcribe this and send it to everyone in the business.
Exactly. I could make millions from this. And then she just very casually said, I thought it was in case someone tried to steal your toys. And at that instant, I realized I had just assumed that she was worried.
Right.
She wasn't. It was just an observation. There's 2 cameras in here.
Exactly.
So,
you're out of green crayons.
Exactly. And then the more we talked, she saw them at Walmart. She knows that's what they're for.
So you were imposing
Absolutely.
on her a fear she didn't have.
Absolutely. And I can use all the therapeutic and wonderful terms that we learned in school about it, but that's basically what I was doing. I assumed she thought and felt a certain way. When all she needed me to say was, yep, there are 2 cameras. Got any questions about that? Nope. Okay. And we could have went on. So it's real important that when you got that 8-year-old who says 20 kids died, what do you know about that? How do you feel about that? Before we jump into
being a perfect parent
being
and giving
that
all
perfect
the
parent.
information.
Exactly. There's no such thing as perfect parenting. I'm so sorry.
So
there isn't. But it's just doing the best you can with what you've got at the moment.
Okay, so we want to be age appropriate, meaning, and we don't want to bombard them with too much information.
Right.
I love that. What do you know about that? Let's start there.
Exactly.
How do you feel about that? Let's start there. And let's only answer what has to be answered.
Absolutely.
And that's true when you talk about abuse.
Sure.
You talk about the threat of sexual abuse.
Absolutely.
And the risk to safety. Because, security and safety and love, that's really...
Absolute. It's paramount.
They've
got to have
those 3 things, you can work on anything from there.
You pretty much can. You absolutely can. When the 3-year-old walks in on you and your husband having sex, and they will... Sometimes we forget to lock. Yeah, right. When it happens 4 times in a row, then I go, have you thought about a lock? When they go, do something with him, what am I supposed to do? And I go, if you just buy a $3 lock, that'll solve everything. They're probably going to ask about it. Mommy, what were you and Daddy doing? They don't need to know. Well, honey, it's when when you have
When a
sex.
man and woman love one another.
And they love one another and decide to have a baby. You know, Mommy and Daddy were having some alone time. It's what grown-ups do, and only grown-ups.
Very good. Very good.
And you keep it simple.
Uh-huh.
You keep it honest. When they're 8 and they ask, they're probably going to say, how come you're having sex?
Stop it. Stop it right now. That's what they're going to say. You're embarrassing me because I don't know really what you're doing, but
Exactly.
I don't. Stop it.
It can't be good. If
It
you're
can't be
doing
good.
it, Mom and Dad, it can't be normal
No.
and it can't be good.
No.
That's about 8 or 9 is when your child starts thinking that parents are idiots.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's when they really, if they're starting. By the time middle school, they are going to be
They're
so embarrassed
full-blown.
with everything you do.
Yeah, you lose all IQ points. I
You
guess.
really do. But by the time they're 25, 26, they are going to be amazed at how much you have learned.
Once they have a kid, they've brought you along.
Yes.
I'll tell you this. The older I get, the more wise my mother is. Now, I don't know when that happened. I don't know when she turned the curve. But, yeah, it's the same thing.
Yes,
It's the same
about
thing.
when you were 25, 26, all of a sudden she went to school or something and just learned all of this stuff.
Yeah, we didn't have the
Right.
internet, so she had gotten some, lifetime books or life books or whatever those things are called. Remember
Probably
those?
Reader's Digest
Yes, probably.
version of
Probably.
that. Let's talk a little bit about adolescence.
Okay.
Because they are so different and so much fun to deal with. Okay,
Let's do an ad.
let's do it.
Don't forget our friends at Lynn Pitt Construction, 423-823-1960. If you're looking to build a house, they will help you any way they can. Check out pittcrew.com, PITTCREW. And if you want to call into the show, the phone number is 423-972-4444.
Okay, we were almost to our adolescence.
Yes,
Okay.
our fun adolescence.
And that, what range?
Well,
7th grade?
7th grade, 8th grade. Technically, it's 13 and above, but you get a little good. Again, it depends on your child. These are going to act totally different than your younger kids. These are the ones who know it all.
Right.
Now, these are the ones who have their own smartphones. They probably knew about it before you did.
Right.
So it's really important that you get with them and talk about it and their understanding. They're going to be focused a lot on not what they would do, but those feelings of retribution. They're the ones who are going to talk about, well, if I was there, I would have killed him first.
Right.
I wouldn't have let him get to those other kids. And that's part of that, just the developmental of an adolescent, of how they're going to save the world and their own limitations and all those other fun things. They're going to act out a lot with anger, and it's real important to talk with them about that anger and the difference of it's really okay to be sad. It's okay to be angry, and this will apply somewhat to younger kids, but the consequences of acting that way. You're going to be a lot more honest with these kids, a lot more matter of fact, a lot more...
Give me an example of a matter of fact.
Let's see. The adolescents are going to be the ones who will come to you and say, well, he had a mental illness, didn't he? Yes. Yes, he did. What do you know about that mental illness? We go back to that. What do you know? What fears do you have now? What would you do with that?
And even having a mental illness doesn't mean that's why he did this.
Absolutely, and that's a really good point, because we don't want to blame everything on a mental illness. We want to be careful not to blame things on culture.
Right.
We don't want to blame things of, well, those people out in L.A., they do stuff like this all the time, or people in New York. We don't want to blame race, culture, or any of these religions, or any of that. You really just want to focus on, this was a tragedy that happened. Just remember that teenagers are more sophisticated. You can't just do it was a bad thing, I'm keeping you safe. They're going to want details. They're going to want to know exactly.
They're going to talk about gun control. They're going to want to talk about police in schools. They're going to want to talk about that kind of thing.
But don't let them dwell on it, because it's real easy to get bombarded. My niece at the time kept wanting to give me updates during the funeral, and I finally just said, I don't really need to be hearing this.
Right.
Part of it was because of the job I do every day. but it was just too much for me. And that's okay. I think we need to limit some of that. So at least while they're at your home, limit that. Get them out into activities and doing other things.
And they need to learn to limit their exposure as well.
Absolutely.
How much of this do you need to know? You know, how much of this do you need to know?
Exactly. Do we really need to know all the details of what happened to every victim?
It's not just a Sandy Hook. It's, do we really need to watch O.J. Simpson in the Bronco? Do
Right.
we really need to watch the entire trial? You know, do we really need to watch? Because we're not talking about a historic event like Obama's inauguration today. You know, we're not talking about watching that,
Right.
you know, for
Right.
the purpose of the history. You know, we're talking about, and I remember when I was in college, the space shuttle blew up.
Oh,
Do you remember
yes.
that?
I
And
remember exactly where I was.
I do too.
Yes.
And it's one of those,
Defining moments.
yes,
Absolutely.
And we watched it, but of course, you know, we had 3 networks then.
Right.
So you got the ABC camera, the CBS camera, and the
NBC.
NBC camera. Those are the only angles you had.
Right. We had PBS, but they didn't do cameras and
No, they
things
didn't
like
do
that.
cameras then. They just had that one, and it was being busy at the Zumba set, or not Zumba. What was that show we used to watch?
I don't know.
that
Lawrence
show?
Welk is what I remember
On
from
the
Sunday
ABC?
afternoons.
Okay.
No,
I
from
mean, on the
PBS.
PBS?
Yes. The Bubbles
I
and
don't know.
Lawrence
Yeah, the
Welk.
Bubbles,
and,
yeah.
Okay.
But he was in color. Anyway, we only had the 3 camera angles at that time. And it was really just the footage of the actual explosion. So multiply that, and we all gathered around the TV, and there was only limited amount of details. So it was self-limiting.
Absolutely.
And that was, I think, 85.
It was 85.
Not long after that, a airplane crashed in the parking lot of my dorm at ETSU.
Oh, my goodness.
Isn't that something?
Did not know that.
I mean, they had counseling centers set up for people because we actually saw that one. That one was right there in the parking lot. You know, people died right there.
Right.
Especially here, you got these 2 coordinating events. But now we have everyone that was associated with any. You know, we have neighbors that are being interviewed. We have every news reporter wanting to get a hook on the story.
Right.
They're interviewing, you know, the medical examiner. They're interviewing anyone that it was, you know, associated with anything. So you've got all those stories want to air. You know, so it's a lot to.
And the people witnessing the event with their own cell phone cameras.
Yes.
Which gets uploaded to YouTube and Facebook with just a click. And suddenly you're seeing
Raw.
it. Yeah, raw. Absolutely. Non-edited, raw data from 16 million different sources.
And that's a lot to absorb, a lot to ingest. And
It
so,
is.
I mean, I love that phrase. How much do we need to know? How much do you need to know about that, really?
Right. And we really don't need details.
No, we don't. I mean, I'm an old news person, so, you know, I'm very strong about the public's right to know.
Absolutely.
Okay, so don't get me on that soapbox. But need to know how much.
Absolutely.
You
Do we
know,
really need to see a picture of the damage?
Exactly.
Isn't it enough to know that it happened? Do we need to see the bodies?
I do
And I would argue no.
Right, I agree with that. I do not need to share in your family's tragedy as you bury a child.
Absolutely.
I need to preserve your dignity
Absolutely.
and give you that privacy. You're not a public person.
Right.
A terrible thing happened to you publicly. Big difference.
Very big difference.
Okay, so now we're to adolescence.
Yeah.
How do you talk with adolescents about, well, let's back up a little bit. How do you talk with the little ones, the 4, 5, 6, about the potential or the threat of sexual abuse? We've named it.
Right. Right.
Okay.
And this
we know that we don't pull our skirt up in public.
Exactly.
Okay. we know that
we don't touch ourselves in public. That's our bedroom, privacy of our own home.
Bathroom thing. Yes.
Right. We can't do it in the living room watching Blue's Clues.
Okay.
Children masturbate. I'm just going to get that out there. It's
okay.
very common to see that. I know. I'm having. We got some heart attacks going on in the room right now. Some of our professional team members still have struggle with that, but young kids do. It's a body part. They touch themselves. Touching at Walmart, not appropriate.
Right.
Touching in their bedroom at night, Not going to hurt them, not going to kill them. They're not going to, it's not going to fall off. They're not going to go blind. I promise. And you ask, how do you talk to that 3 and 4-year-old about keeping themselves safe? Well, you've really got to go back to when they're younger. But if you haven't, that's okay. It's not too late. You talk with them about boundaries. That's the interesting thing.
That's a big word when you're 3.
That's really a big word. But kids know it. You know that gut feeling kids get? And they go, I don't want to go hug Aunt Susie. But Aunt Susie drove 200 miles to go see you or come see you. You go right over there and hug her neck and give her a hug.
Her mustache tickles me.
That's right. That's okay. And that's one of my big pet peeves. We do that in the South. I love my Appalachia culture. I adore this area. But we really seem to think that kids should have to share their bodies with other people, hugging and kissing. And how do you tell a child, it's okay, you have that icky feeling, but you're going to go hug Aunt Susie anyway, and then in the other breath say, stay away from people who are going to hurt you. They don't understand that.
But strangers want to touch your children.
No, strangers do not want to touch your children.
Strangers come up and want to touch babies, and they want to, can I hold your baby? And
well,
I'm like,
yes.
I don't know you like that.
Well, now that's true. That's true. We do have this culture where...
That's very Southern.
That is very Southern. There's this idea that babies are communal property.
Yes.
And it's okay. And pregnant women's bellies. It's okay to go touch a baby's face or their fingers. We don't need to do that. We need to respect babies.
Right.
We really do need to do that. When I said that strangers don't touch our kids, I was really talking more about sexual abuse, because there is this idea that there's that guy behind the bush who's waiting to snatch your child from the school playground. Handful of cases. I can count on one hand the number of cases we've had of strangers abusing children. And I've been at the Child Advocacy Center for 10 years.
Wow.
It's people who are abusing our kids are people that these children know, love, and trust.
Well, now I got to step in here and say something. And I want your opinion on it. When my daughter was little, my wife and both would say this. Always tell us if somebody touches you that you didn't want to be touched or inappropriate. I said even if daddy or mommy touches you, go tell mommy, or go tell daddy, and I don't think we made it as a, if I touch you, go tell mommy type deal, tell on me. I think we made it as a, you can always talk to both of us matter what happens.
That's it. Because the reality is, for young kids, people are going to have to touch their privates. They're going to have to touch their penis and vagina. When you're potty training, mommy and daddy's going to have to help you wipe your bottom. When you go to a doctor, they're going to have to touch you. But it's confusing for kids to say, don't let anyone touch you except mommy, daddy, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, Aunt Susie, Uncle Steve. When you start limiting, it's confusing for kids. But when you tell them that it's okay, even if daddy's doing the touching and they don't like it, that they can go tell mom, that gives them that permission. And that puts their boundaries in place. And it's modeling those boundaries that are so important with young kids. That, hands to ourselves, no one's allowed to touch you. I had this with a friend of mine's little boy. She had just had a baby and was breastfeeding. So he comes up to him and he's climbing on my lap, and Caleb and I hung out all the time. And he was about 3, and he grabs my breast and he says, "Where's your milk?" So I explained, "I don't have milk." And he was very confused. So he kept grabbing them, trying to find the milk. So we had to talk about, that's not appropriate. That's my breast. And it sounds silly to say that.
No.
Those are mine. You can't touch those. But it's modeling those kind of behaviors.
At a risk here.
Yeah.
Had mom been too open with that?
No, he just, in his mind, there was no other use, which isn't appropriate for a 3-year-old. Right. There was no other use for breast other than to feed your baby and have milk.
What baby are you feeding?
I don't have a baby. He knew that. And then I'm telling him I didn't have milk, so he was really confused. But it was a good chance to model the appropriate behaviors with kids.
Okay, I want to go back to something you said, and I'm just playing the other side here.
Please.
You said, if someone touches you in a way that you don't like, is that always
No, and I'm really glad. I was
the case?
kind of wondering whether
Mhm.
we should bring that up. Because the reality is that it's often pleasurable when children have their genitals touched.
Mhm.
If it wasn't pleasurable, we wouldn't have sex. We wouldn't have children.
Mhm.
You know,
And they wouldn't
and that's what I would say.
be touching themselves.
Exactly. If it hurt to have sex, or every time we touched our penis or vagina it hurt, we would never do it again.
It'd cut back on some of that, wouldn't it?
It would cut back on a whole bunch
Yeah,
of little
yeah.
babies running around and
Mhm.
big peoples and
Mhm.
probably a whole lot of revenue coming in for certain activities too. Would definitely
The
cut that
world
out.
as we know it would change.
It
in
would
every
absolutely
area,
change.
actually.
So that is difficult to say if you don't like it. But telling kids and teaching them to really pay attention to that uh-oh feeling.
Mhm.
Because kids are really smart. They really kind of get that. Even if they're just it's just an off day and they don't want daddy to tickle.
Mhm.
Maybe your little girl, you're ready to play and she's just not having it. It's respecting that. When she
Mhm.
says stop, respecting
This is
that.
my body.
And you're stopping.
Mhm. Because a good sexual predator, one that is in the business of
Absolutely.
it, primes and cultivates
Yes, they
their
do.
victim.
Yes, they do.
So it may start out as this is my aunt's boyfriend,
Mm-hmm.
and well, I'll just give him a bath today.
That's it.
And it's
starts
not
out
a
as a
bad
fun
thing.
game.
That's exactly right, and it's cultivated over time.
Mm-hmm. It is. What we call that grooming.
Mhm.
A lot of grooming behavior, and it sets them up to get used to. And it teaches them to don't pay attention to that uh-oh feeling. So you want to keep, Jackie, you were exactly right about keeping that dialogue open, talking with them, making sure that they know they can come to you. You know, and that's sometimes when I'm talking to kids, I talk about we don't want to do good touch, bad touch, because a bad touch isn't just touching sexual genitals when you don't want to. A bad touch is hitting and smacking. And but a secret, if anyone wants you to keep a secret, can you tell about that secret? That's sometimes a good way, because kids know about secrets for birthdays.
We play a game in our house, and we do it on purpose. But the kids thinks it's a game. It's like, I'll tell them, I'll like, come here, I've got a secret to tell you. And I said, don't tell mommy. I'll be like, Daddy loves you. And then they'll run and tell mommy. But it's a game to them. But it's kind of our way of,
Right.
they can run and tell the secret, and then when they tell mommy. And then they look at me to see if I'm mad because I told the secret.
Exactly.
And then I'm sitting there, I'll go grab them and laugh with them and play with them. Like you should
Right.
have told mom. Tickle them
Right.
and stuff like that.
Right.
But I recognize it as soon as they tell mommy, the first thing they do is they're looking at you to see if you're mad.
Absolutely. And that's the key. They are gauging your reaction. Can they tell mommy? You're telling them to keep a secret, but can they really tell mommy? If they can and they're not going to get in trouble, that's great. That's the, don't tell daddy we got him a new tie for Christmas or a
Right.
new golf club. But if you tell grandma and they're going to get upset and you don't tell, because that's that icky feeling, we want to make sure that kids know to tell.
Yeah, I haven't gotten a surprise birthday or Christmas gift ever since my kids were born. So.
I told you, kids are great.
It's automatically, as soon as they get it, if the kids know, guess what, Daddy?
We can't tell him about the
Exactly. Daddy, you're not supposed to know about the new motorcycle you got.
Right. Okay, so that is little ones. Little ones.
Yes.
How to open that conversation up with little ones.
Right.
Now they get a little older.
Now they get a little older.
Now they're curious.
Now they're very curious. Now they're getting information from school.
Now, okay, let's do little grades. Let's do second, third, fourth.
They're getting information from school, from their peers.
Okay. In first, second, third grade?
Kindergarten.
Kindergarten.
Yes.
Wow.
At kindergarten, kids are talking.
I got milk money for kissing the boys, and when I was in first grade, I had a pocket full of nickels, but
I didn't get paid. I'd pretend to be a cat, my best friend and I in kindergarten, and we would run around the playground, tackle a couple of the boys, kiss them on the cheek, and then start meowing. I don't know why we thought that was great fun. Nowadays, I would get charged with sexual harassment.
That's hilarious. Well, if you tackled them, that's battery.
We did. Well, yeah, I was a little bit of a tomboy too, so I was in charge with. She kind of corralled them. I tackled them, brought them down, and then we held them.
I hate to interrupt, but I normally don't get in Pam's shows, but this is just such a good show. It is, but you was talking about the schools.
Yes.
Do you think that the schools have gone too far with the sexual harassment deal, or keeping kids away?
Fear of being sued.
It's the fear of being sued. I think as a society as a whole, we've gone too far. We are focusing on the wrong thing. We're focusing on sexual harassment and lawsuits instead of, how about you just back up and talk to your kids about what's appropriate and what's
Right.
not.
It's taken the onus away.
It really
But
has.
we sit here in our wonderful little studio and our wonderful little conversation, and we forget that not every parent is you and me and Jack.
Absolutely.
Not every parent is, some of the parents are more wrapped up in their own lives.
Sure.
That, okay, the kid's not had a bath in a couple of days.
Right.
Maybe there's a meth lab,
Absolutely.
If you're involved with methamphetamine, your focus is not a nice dinner.
No, it's not. You're
It is
focused
not.
on how am I going to get my next high.
Exactly. You don't care that the bed is made.
No.
You don't care that, you don't care about anything.
No.
So is that appropriate touching when the boyfriend has the, 6-year-old girl in the bathtub? You're not even
Right.
aware of where they are. So,
Right.
and it's not just, that big drug. It maybe it's alcohol.
Sure.
Maybe it's
Maybe it's marijuana.
Maybe it's marijuana. Maybe it's a single parent who's just desperate for a mate.
Or desperate for a break for 5 minutes.
Yes.
And they're so desperate that, okay, yeah, we've dated for 2 weeks, but gosh, she's so nice to want to help me out.
Or he's the 14-year-old boy down the street. Just watch the kids.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because opportunity
Absolutely.
is the biggest.
Oh, absolutely. It's opportunity. We talk about and we throw around the term pedophile, but pedophile it's very rare to be a pedophile. That's actually a diagnosis, a mental health diagnosis, and those are people who are only fixated. They can only become aroused by images of children. Most of the people who are molesting our children and abusing them and raping them, they're not pedophiles. It's an opportunity.
Isn't that
It's scary
a
because
realization?
then we think, how do we solve it? As long as we can blame it on the pedophiles, we have some control.
Yeah, those sickos out there.
Right.
Those
Exactly.
this, that, or the other.
But the sickos are in our home, unfortunately.
And it is people that maybe would never, it was just the opportunity, all the stars lined up.
That's exactly it.
I was a little high. She was a little available. She
That's
didn't
it.
seem to mind.
Mm-hmm.
She'd been dancing to those Beyonce videos.
Sure. Had a
She
little
was
bit.
curious.
I mixed the alcohol with the pill I took just to relax. I work really hard all week, and I thought it was my girlfriend in bed with me. We hear that a lot.
I woke up in the morning and there she was. I was half asleep.
Exactly.
I mean, that's real.
Oh, absolutely.
That's real.
Absolutely. We
It's
unfortunately
not
hear
people
that a
we
lot.
know. It's never people we know, is
Of course
it?
not. It's always those other people. People
Yes.
would be very surprised
The
if
extra
if
people.
I told them if I would tell names of children who have been abused or who have abused kids, you would be very, very shocked.
Not
by
just
some of these
children.
names.
I mean, adults.
Right.
If you took the phone book of Greene County
Yes.
and you rattled off, the first 25 pages, I think people would be astounded at the number of people who have at least some, what by today's standards could be considered abusive sexual
Right.
event in their life.
Well, what we know is that 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually assaulted by their 18th birthday. Just let that sink in for a moment.
Yeah.
1 in 3, 33%. And that's from talking to people and having them do a retro study. Basically, report yourself. Were you ever, any of these
Right.
things happened to you before you're 18? So that's their self-reporting. So imagine that the ones who are not self-reporting. And it used to be, we used to hear 1 in 4, but just recently the new statistics are coming out that it's 1 in 3. If 33% of our children were being hurt on a school bus, what do you think Greene County would do?
We added a cop to every school.
Yes.
Because of something that happened far, far away.
Far, far away. 1 in 3 girls, 33% of our girls, and 15.66% of our boys are being assaulted. And that's right here in Greene County.
And this is where we live.
Absolutely.
And the biggest culprit is opportunity.
Opportunity and the silence. We don't talk about it.
Let me go here for just a second. And I'm going to tell a story about someone I know, and I won't tell all the details because I love her deeply. When she was in elementary school, went to see the doctor. He cupped her breast. He did that. Apparently he was, that's what he did, and all the girls talked about it, but no one told about it.
Right.
That still haunts her. We're the same age. She's 47, 48 years old. And that haunts her because someone in authority cupped her breast when he was listening to her heart. To someone else who has survived being caged and used as a sexual toy.
Right.
You would look at that and you'd say, okay, he cupped her breast. Okay, copped a feel. I mean, he's an old guy. He's got a little Parkinson's. He's just, he's okay. You're 14. Your breasts are nice. Okay. It doesn't matter what I think about that. What matters is how that affected her life and still is shaping her life.
Yes, that is such a good point. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, I think she would not mind because you can't gauge it on how good or bad or strong or well that was severe or that wasn't severe.
Correct.
It's about how that person assimilates what happened.
And I hear that all the time from other professionals, even colleagues, that'll say it's not like he had intercourse with her. I mean, he fondled her a bit, but I mean, this family and this child is acting like it's the end of the world. Maybe it is for this child.
Right.
Whereas another child may be able to deal with it a little bit better.
Because you can't look at anything, drug abuse, alcohol abuse.
Right.
Some people's bootstraps are made of different material.
Absolutely.
And
some people don't even have bootstraps.
That's exactly right.
I hear that all the time. They should pull themselves up by the bootstraps. And I go, well, what if they don't have bootstraps?
I got flip-flops on. What do you want from me?
Exactly. How do you pull yourself up when you don't even have the bootstraps and don't know where to get them?
Right. Because somewhere way back, no one taught you to be more self-reliant. Is that what we're talking about? Be more strong?
What's the word? Not self-reliant. I would say self-esteem. Let's talk about how much you are worth.
Good one.
Not arrogance, but just the self-worth that, you deserve better. You deserve better than a guy who's going to sit at home and get your kids to school and get off the bus while you're working 70 hours a week. You deserve better than what's going on. You deserve better at 14 than being with the guy who's 18 and is hitting you because you don't have sex with him.
Right.
And it goes back to those values and those boundaries. And we talk a lot about teaching sex ed in the high schools, and I don't believe that's the answer. The answer is starting back when they're young.
A little girl I know, she's not a little girl, she's in her 20s. But to me, that's
she's
a little girl.
Right.
She is pregnant. And so I said, and she has a little boy. And I said, oh, you have a girl this time. And she said, I don't want a girl. And I said, why? And she said, they get pregnant. And I'm like, not all the time.
Right.
I mean, it's not like a constant.
Right. It's not like, bam, 20 years old, they're pregnant.
6 months old, I'm having babies.
That's right.
I mean, and here's a big news flash for you. You're a girl.
Absolutely.
You're married and you're pregnant. You're a girl.
Right.
But it goes back. That's huge.
Goes back to their self-worth.
To worth.
And it goes back to those role models in their lives. Do they have the role model that needed to have someone there to help protect them?
Mm-hmm.
Did they have a role model where there's domestic violence in the home? A new study out, fascinating. I'm a research geek, so forgive me for the studies, but a new study is showing there's a major link between children who witness domestic violence and children who then have sexual behavior problems. These are the kids that are then going to school and touching other kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to those boundaries and the trauma.
Because our private parts are also our vulnerable parts.
Absolutely.
And I may not be able to out-muscle you.
That's it.
But I can,
But I can have some power this way. And
I heard a new study today.
oh, good. What's the new study?
Given all this with Lance Armstrong and how, he says, yes, I did this, but the scariest part is it didn't dawn on me that it was wrong. Okay, remember him saying that, and he told all these lies. That is scary.
That is so scary.
Yeah, I was doing it, but I mean, it's not that there's anything wrong with that. Okay, yeah, we were all doing it. Okay,
right.
So let's just set our moray. So the new study, they did a study. 67% of Americans have admitted that they lie at least 5 times a day. The study went on to conclude the reason they lie, it works. Who paid for that? Do you hear me? Who paid for that?
But what a great study. Because I hear all the time when kids make an allegation, the first thing I hear, kids lie. Of course they do. Adults lie too.
Exactly.
It's not
they don't
like,
give it up.
Right. When you turn 18, whoops, Pinocchio, I can never tell a lie again. Of course they lie.
And kids manipulate. You know why?
Absolutely. Because it works.
It gets their way. Yes.
And they can. And they can.
And sometimes they don't even know why.
They don't. But let's talk about a 4-year-old who's been sexually abused and being told, if you tell anybody, you'll never see your mommy or daddy again. Or they're going to think you're horrible and send you away. They'll never believe you.
Nobody will believe you.
If you're keeping that every day a secret, some of us would call that a lie. Because when someone says, is anyone touching you? Oh, no, everything. And most often kids will deny the first time you ask them if anyone has touched them because they're gauging your reaction.
Because they don't want you mad at them.
They don't want you mad at them. They don't want to see you upset and hurt. That's why parents are usually the last to know, especially mamas. They hate telling mamas that they've been hurt.
You would think mamas would be the first to know.
You would
this
think.
Is my kid. How do I not know what's going on with my kid?
But the kids do not want their mom to know because they don't want to have to deal with those kind of emotional outbursts and responses.
Let's talk about the other side of that. I'm 14. Mom's divorced. I don't like your boyfriend.
Sure.
I'm going to tell a lie.
And that happens. The older the child is, that is always something we have to consider because we hear, kids lie. 3 and 4-year-olds are not sophisticated enough to keep a lie going. That's the difference.
Information. There are certain things you don't know.
Exactly. And but nowadays with the media, even that's becoming a different ballgame. Pam, when you and I were growing up, the worst thing that could happen, I have 2 older brothers, and I know you have brothers. The worst thing that happened was when they found a Playboy in the garbage that someone had thrown away. I mean, you would have thought that Christmas had come early for them. They're hiding it in places.
They still feel that way.
Do they? Okay. But they're really excited, and that's most people in the neighborhood's first kind of look at sex and seeing the bodies. Nowadays, you can get a kindergartner can put in sex in Google, and you're going to get hardcore videos showing up. It's a whole different world nowadays.
I used to date a sports reporter, and Auburn University had gotten a new coach. This was many years ago. So, and we just gotten this thing called the internet, and so he Googled Auburn. He said, "I got every naked redhead in the country." And he's like, "It's Auburn University. It's what? Good gosh!" So he's at work, and he's throwing his jacket over the, thinking, "Who's seeing my, what?"
And as a redhead, I'm not quite sure how I feel about that. I'm usually go redheads, but now I'm feeling a little
strange,
about that, a little vulnerable,
awkward. Yeah, it was only the nakeds.
Yeah,
it was only the naked redheads. Yeah, but it is that easy.
It is very.
When I worked for the paper, here's a better one. When I worked for the paper, I asked my production person to do 2 things. I wanted a picture of the Grim Reaper for an ad poster that I had in mind. And we also did ads for ATVs and Sea-Doos and that kind of stuff. So she Googles water sports.
Oh, no.
Apparently, peeing on each other, you can get pictures of that. And it's called water sports. Who knew?
Wow, you really can talk about anything on internet radio. I may be blushing now.
Exactly. And I was like,
yes, you
okay,
can.
yeah, you can't. You got it. Innocently.
Absolutely.
Adults can get
Absolutely.
horrible
well,
things.
Think about it. When you
don't have to go free porn. You'd
No,
probably get
no.
more hits on water sports than you would penis.
Probably so. But we also look at the TV shows. When you have shows like Family Guy airing at 5 p.m., it's a cartoon. Kids say, oh, look, Mommy, it's a cartoon. Mom's cooking dinner, not thinking about what's on.
That's not for children.
It is so not for children.
And people
It's
say,
not.
well, they don't get it.
Oh,
They
do.
might piece it together. And they may piece it together incorrectly. It may look like a Monet. Or it may look like a Picasso.
That's
but they
right.
got enough of it.
Absolutely. Or they may just hear enough of SEX and put it in Google.
Oh, nice. There you go. There you go. Well, Dina, it's 8:55. We have talked the night away.
That's
thank
amazing.
You. I thank you so much for coming tonight.
Oh, thank you for letting me be here.
Well, thank you. I want you to come back.
Okay, we'll do.
Good. Next week, I'm having Lynette, who owns the Creamy Cup.
Oh,
up across from
yay.
Tuscan
Nice.
College.
Wonderful,
She said, I told her
wonderful
that I
place.
love the smell of coffee, hate the taste.
Oh,
So she's going to bring me some non-coffee deliciousness.
okay. Yay. Can I have the coffee part of it then?
Okay.
Because I love the coffee.
Do you love the coffee?
I love the coffee.
Well, we're going to talk. I'd like to start a series of women in business.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So if you know someone that's, a woman, a girlfriend,
Okay.
in business, I have my own business too, and I'd like to talk a little bit about how you got started, how you chose this, how the market's responding to you, how do you market yourself,
Right.
And so that's what Lynette and I are going to talk about. She is super fun, super sweet, has a great laugh, and she also is a little off the wall, and I like those kind of people. But Dina, come back anytime. Let me know. We'll do another subject. And
That sounds great.
Tell us where people can reach you if they have questions.
Yes.
And they can call you and just talk about things that are concerning to them.
Absolutely. Feel free to call us. I'd rather you call us and let somebody at our center talk with you than just wondering or not know what to do. And you can reach us at 423-422-4446.
Okay, very good. Very close to our number here. Now, you also go to churches and you speak at
I'll
groups.
speak to anyone who will let me come.
There you go.
I like to speak.
Okay. Well, that is wonderful. Tell us again what your title is. What's the name of the place where you are?
I'm the executive director of the Child Advocacy Center for the 3rd Judicial District, and our phone number is 423-422-4446.
And you're in beautiful downtown Mossam.
Absolutely. It's gorgeous there.
Okay. Very good. All right. Well, Jack is going to do another ad for us, and that will wrap up this edition of Pam Gosnell's Girlfriends. Thank you for tuning in.
Don't forget our friends at Realty Executives of East Tennessee. Give them a call today, 423-639-3465. Check out their website, www.greenville-homes.com. If you would like to advertise on Greenville Media, give us a call at 423-588-9557 or email us at greenvillemedia@yahoo.com. Bye, everybody.